We're live from our studios here at Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. This is the home of fearless, credible and independent journalism. Our top stories this hour. This afternoon, a manhunt for several members of the baby harvesting and selling syndicate said to be operating in Ghana's hospitals and selling newborn babies to patrons in Ghana and abroad.
I will let you know the 3 babies as we go along. And there's another case where we have begun investigations into a 4th baby, which was allegedly bought by one Nancy Nanaya Frimpong.
And the Medical and Dental Council are on a search for all those involved as 11 stand arrested and 4 babies are rescued. Also coming up, Ghana Health Service on the alert as 2 new variants of COVID-19 are discovered in the country, sparking fears of reducing potency of vaccines being administered to Ghanaians. Plus, we take you to Rwanda for a discussion with Gifty Ando-Apia on what she has discovered there so far, including these gorillas. That's coming up here on The Pulse. Welcome. My name is Daniel Jazzy. Welcome to the Bulletin. We begin with baby selling. Investigators from the Economic and Organized Crimes Office are on the hunt for multiple agents linked to a baby harvesting and selling syndicate said to be buying and selling newborns off their unsuspecting mothers in Ghana and abroad. At least 4 babies have been rescued from the syndicate after a joint operation with the Medical and Dental Council in some health facilities in the Greater Accra region alone. So far, 11 persons have been arrested. We have details of the latest arrests and plans to track down the ringleaders. First, Manuel Kranting's report as officials of the 2 institutions mounted an operation to track those involved in the crime.
Selling and child trafficking becoming a booming business in Ghana, although an illegal enterprise. Under the cover of darkness, babies are stolen from their mothers right after birth and sold. The Economic and Organized Crime Office and the Medical and Dental Council have been engaged in a joint operation to unravel this blight on the nation's conscience. According to Executive Director of Yoko, Frank Edupoku, 3 of the babies who were sold have been rescued, with 1 still under investigation.
Of 31st December 2020, the last day of the year. As many people prepared to bid farewell to one year and welcome another, somewhere at the Tema General Hospital within the Tema metropolis, a baby was about seeing the last of his biological mother. In motion on that fateful day was the sale of a 1-month-old baby boy by an organized baby selling cartel. This syndicate is made up of several people, including doctors, nurses, and social welfare officers, among others, all of whom are entrusted with the responsibility of providing assistance to mothers and their newly born babies. Their operations had been on the radar of the Medical and Dental Council for a while, and today the council has teamed up with the officers from Economic and Organized Crime Office, Yoko, to foil one of such illegal transactions. The Connect, Leonard Able, an officer at the head office of the Department of Social Welfare, had already taken 10,000 Ghana cedis as a deposit for the baby, who he was selling at 28,000 Ghana cedis from a woman in need of a baby, not knowing she was an undercover officer with Yoko. The JoyNews team was embedded in the operation and filmed from a distance as Mr. Able went to collect the baby and accompanied the female undercover officer to a vehicle. This was the point of arrest. Leonard Able was arrested and the baby retrieved. On-site interrogations revealed Mr. Able was not alone. His accomplices, a nurse only identified as Nancy, and the head of the social welfare at the hospital, also referred to as Auntie Doris, had heard of the arrest and immediately bolted.
I've called her several times, but she's not picking up, so I keep on calling. I don't know what to do.
What is her name? What is her surname? There's a woman who left in the car, in the taxi.
She left in the taxi?
Yes. They gave money that I should go and pay them.
Okay, so what's the evidence that you paid?
Oh, so the woman said that.
Which woman?
Nancy said that she had done adoption before. And she said that she had somebody, she has a baby, an abandoned baby here. Doris said she had an abandoned baby here. You get me? So I should assist her in the baby is there. Somebody, if we have somebody.
Not even a call from the medical director of the facility could get them to return.
Can you come right away to my office? The General Hospital, Director's office. Yes. 1 hour's time.
The entire morning went by with the arrested suspect pleading for mercy as he sent the team on a wild goose chase from one facility to the other in search of his other accomplices.
Yes, but the way my name, my this thing, I beg you. Help me, I beg you.
Yes.
Help me.
I'm asking.
Can you go help me?
They give you money? They give you money? Did you take any money?
They gave money that I should go and pay them.
Okay.
The day ended with one arrest as the task force worked other leads to effect more arrests. For JoyNews, Banu.
We apologize for that earlier mix-up with the reports. Let's move on with the story. Now today, IOCO and the Medical and Dental Council held a news conference where they gave an update on the operation so far. Kwekwa Asante was there for JoyNews.
Selling and child trafficking becoming a booming business in Ghana, although an illegal enterprise. Under the cover of darkness, babies are stolen from their mothers right after birth and sold. The Economic and Organized Crime Office and the Medical and Dental Council have been engaged in a joint operation to unravel this blight on the nation's conscience. According to Executive Director of IOCO, Frank Edupoku, 3 of the babies who were sold have been rescued, with 1 still under investigation.
Additional arrests have been made. 4 petitions, and in fact, I'm told as of yesterday, 2 other petitions had been sent to the office. And when we talk of petitions, we are talking of supposed victims who have had their child or children taken away from them, coming to make a case for us to investigate.
The dockets on the investigations will be sent to the Attorney General's office for advice and prosecution.
Arrest of Dr. Hope Kwashi Mensah, the notorious Susan Clinic. We mentioned Dr. Hope Kwashi Mensah as the one at the center of a syndicate based at Susan Clinic at Atebi Okoshi. And as we speak now, all the persons who had one way or the other to do with the case had been arrested and granted IOCO inquiry bail. The docket on Dr. Hope Kwashi Mensah, so far as the Susan Clinic is concerned, is almost ready, and we are just about submitting it to the Attorney General's office for advice and prosecution.
IOCO does not believe it should extend the investigations to other regions immediately.
this is a specialized type of investigation. And if you are not careful and you decide that all the regions should be involved in it, you are going to lose track of it. Because we are very comfortable here because we are working hand in hand with the Medical and Dental Council. So going forward, if we're able to establish that relationship with all the regional, maybe dental, I don't know whether they have even offices in the regions, then we can maybe expand our investigations.
Meanwhile, some of these babies are sadly procured and attempts made to traffic them outside the country. For now, the pain and anguish of mothers who suspect that they are victims of this syndicate will continue to hope that justice will be served and such criminals will be rooted out of society.
Joining us now is the acting registrar of the Medical and Dental Council, Dr. Divine Banu Bala. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us. First question is, how soon will these 4 rescued babies be reunited with their families?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. That is a difficult question to answer because it depends upon what the investigations throw out. And I would suppose that that will be, even if all of them are through to prosecution, that will be after the matters have been properly and fully determined by a court of competent jurisdiction. So I wouldn't want to go into guessing as and when. But what I can assure you, as was made clear by my colleague, the executive director, is that these children that are currently in our custody, our joint custody, are in a very, very good place. They are safe, well, and being taken care of very well. And I can confirm that our team of investigators just returned from visiting the children today, and they report that all of them are in very good condition and are being taken good care of.
Now, that I'm sure is very reassuring to the family members, but are we able to connect each individual baby to the mother that gave birth to them? And will they have access to them in this safe place that they're being kept in the meantime that investigations are ongoing?
Thank you very much. I wish to further clarify and explain that. First, we have been able to connect 2 of the babies to their biological mothers. We have also been able to connect one of them to both their biological mother and biological father. The 3rd baby, we are not yet, and Yoko has not yet been able, our investigations have not yet been able to connect the baby, the 3rd baby, with the biological mother. But as I want to clarify that at this point, biological mothers or social mothers or foster mothers, those that are directly linked to an issue are suspects. And whether or not they are allowed any direct engaged contact with the children will depend upon what the outcomes of the investigations as they go on. And so I have no doubt that the cardinal principle underpinning the children issues in accordance with our Constitution and the Children's Act is the best interest of the child, the welfare principle. And I want to further assure you that we are acutely aware of our obligations under the laws of Ghana to make sure that at all times we act in the best interest of these children, and that is how they are being managed at this stage.
Pardon me, Doctor, I just want to get this quick clarification. Is it the position of Yoko and the Medical and Dental Council that those biological mothers out there could be complicit in selling their own babies?
Once you have investigations and then they have not yet been fully concluded and charges drafted, it may be possible that they were victims of the entire situation. It may also be possible that they were conspirators or willful participants. But all of these are matters of facts to be established. And it is only when the charges are being framed that full investigations and facts show that the mothers were actually victims of the circumstances. Then they not only may have access, because remember that having access to children of this nature will require what we call a complete social inquiry by the department that has the statutory obligation to do that, the Social Welfare Department of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. And therefore, what I want to state now is that we are not yet clear, we have not made a definitive statement as to the culpability or the level of involvement of the mothers, and whether these biological mothers are going to be witnesses or they are going to be suspects or charged as well as being complicit.
Right. Doctor, how large is this group really? Our report is that there's still a manhunt for members of this group, possibly the ringleaders, but 11 people have been picked up already. Do we have an idea how many people are really involved in this?
Well, we will never have an idea. It's almost like, the tip of the iceberg. And I keep telling people that this is a focused, specialized investigation. And therefore, we can only talk about where the facts have led us. And as we know it, we have 2 medical doctors who are involved in this enterprise. We have persons who said they are nurses or auxiliary nurses involved. We have persons who, at least one traditional birth attendant who is involved. We have a retired social welfare officer and current serving social welfare officer involved. We have a nurse who is involved, and that nurse has been picked as an additional part of the updates we gave today. The nurse who was in charge of the Tema General Hospital's in neonatal intensive care unit, called Nelly, was also picked as a suspect. And it will be at the level of advice in terms of framing the charges that, based upon the Attorney General's guidance, we may determine whether some of these persons will be used as witnesses of the state or may actually be deemed culpable and therefore be treated as suspects in the matter.
Right.
So we cannot determine the extent, but what we want to assure the public is that the health sector regulatory agencies are up to the task, and we are coordinating our regulatory efforts and working together to ensure that we continuously adjust our quality assurance processes and management systems, not only to deliver quality healthcare services, but also safe care, and to assure the security, the human security, personal security of all persons engaging our healthcare system.
Okay. Now, the executive director for IOCO mentioned that the possibility of carrying out this investigation on a regional level also depends on the presence of the Ghana Medical and Dental Council at the regional level. Do you have this capacity? And are you able to support an investigation in other parts of the country?
What I will state is that it is our public obligation to support any state agency desirous of conducting whatever investigations that requires our technical support. And whether within the boundaries of this country or outside of it, we are going to reach within the limited resources that we have to ensure that we deliver on that mandate. So to answer your question, first, we do not have regional offices. We currently have zonal offices, one located at the Regional Directorate of the Northern Regional Health Directorate in Tamale, serving that segment of the country. We have one located at Edum, Kumasi, serving the central part of the country. And then we have our head office located here in Ajabin and Accra. And we have a new office zonal office we opened in Sekandita Kradi only October last year. And within the current constraints, we are working hard to incrementally increase our presence, and the overall long-term objective is to increase our presence in every region. But currently, we are only in 4 zones. But also to add that it doesn't matter whether or not we are present in the region is not the issue. Once our investigations lead us there, we will bring our expertise to bear on any agency that wishes to conduct investigations of this nature or like manner in any of the administrative regions or districts in this country.
Finally, Doctor, one name kept coming up in Mr. Dupoku's news conference, one Dr. Kwashi, and there was the name of a notorious hospital mentioned here in Accra. Is that to suggest that Dr. Kwashi is the ringleader of this entire enterprise?
Not at all. What we do know is that this is a complex network of persons, very organized, involved in unlawful acts. Now, currently the facts show that 2 out of the 3 babies in our custody, 2 of them trace their source to Susan Clinic and link Dr. Kwashi Mensah directly as the person who was at the helm of that. So out of the 3 we have, 2 of them are there. The third one, as you already know, is the baby that was procured through Dr. Noah Kofilate of Dangbe Community Hospital in Prampram, and he got the baby sent to Tema General Hospital, the neonatal intensive care unit, where Doris Bedu and Nelly and Obaya Frimpong, Nancy Obaya Frimpong, then supported to ensure that the baby was sold to us at 28,000 Ghana cedis. So it's early days yet to be able to pinpoint a single person. What is clear there is that what is beyond doubt now.
Dr. Divine Banu Bala there, but most of the clear facts were established in that interview. We move on to other stories, and the Ghana Health Service has confirmed the discovery of 2 new variants of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. The 2 variants, B1 and B1.525, were discovered by scientists at Yamache Biotech, a cancer research company. The B1 variant was first identified in Morocco and Algeria. It has been linked to increased transmissibility and has been circulating in Ghana since March 2020. The B1.525 was first identified in Nigeria and is said to have appeared in the northern and western regions of Ghana. Right, so that is what we know about these diseases so far, these variants of the diseases so far. Now, it's important for us to keep this in mind because the AstraZeneca vaccine was found to be not so effective against the South Africa variant, which we were told is not so common in the country. Now, the program manager of the extended program on immunization, Dr. Kwame Amponsa-Chiano, who revealed almost 500,000 people have been vaccinated, said government's priority is to speed up vaccination to avoid getting multiple mutations which could reduce the potency of the vaccines. He spoke on the Super Morning Show.
We know some of the districts are still entering data. They have done the vaccination, except that they did the paper-based entry and now they are putting it on on the electronic platform.
Right.
So we know we should be hovering around almost 500,000.
Okay.
Remember, we had an initial 600,000 doses, which we distributed. We left some buffer just for management's sake. So almost all the 600,000 doses were distributed.
Okay.
The service has been working with WAC. So, of course, you need to monitor the genome or monitor the variant by doing genomic sequencing. And I know the ministry is in talks to do that. I think that only informs whether your vaccines will still be potent or not.
Right.
So far, the only one we know that does not, I wouldn't even say that it's not potent, but it's not as would be expected, is the South African variant. I don't know if you listened to the news last night. The people who actually came out with that, the fact that there were variants maybe peculiar to South Africa, or even worried that South Africa suspended the AstraZeneca in the first place. It was actually out of place because there's still some benefit. So, but essentially what you want to put across is how fast are we able to do our vaccination so that we don't get multiple mutations for which the vaccines will not be potent. I think that's the essence. And it's more of now a global thing than just a local thing. Because if, the whole 6 billion people or 7 billion people in the world are going onto the same 7 or so markets, and there's a lot of pressure. And so it depends on how well you negotiate. And that is why we, from the onset, sign on to the COVAX, because we know that kind of high-level negotiation will give us some vaccines. And we have indication that within the next couple of weeks, up to April ending May, early May, we'll get additional 2 million doses.
We're joined now by a public health expert and adjunct professor at New York University, Nana Kofi Kwache, for more on this. Nana, good to talk to you again. What do we know about these 2 new variants? And I am particularly curious as to how much weight we should place on these findings in the first place.
Well, the discovery of variants in any country is always, or new variants in any country, it's always something that deserves public health attention. In this case, what the researchers at WACBIP and Yamachi Biotech are reporting is that we've detected the B1 strain that was originally from North Africa, specifically Algeria and Morocco, and the B1525 strain, which was also originally identified in Nigeria. We know that the B1525 strain, the one identified in Nigeria, generally is associated with some mutations that have the ability to cause the virus to evade existing immunity. So if you had an infection from one of the ancestral strains and you got infected with this strain, it's possible that the existing immunity might not be protective of preventing you from getting infected or preventing you from getting seriously ill. But as far as that applies to what it means for vaccine-acquired immunity, there just isn't enough data for us to know anything in that respect. There's no reason for us also looking at similar mutations in other variants to think that that mutation wouldn't occur in the same way or have the same impact. And the impact, it's similar to the mutation we've seen in the UK strain, where the virus becomes, it generally ends up having a greater ability to evade immunity, which might impact vaccines somewhat, but all the strains we are seeing so far, when it comes to severe illness and death, the vaccines are effective at preventing that. So we don't have any reason to be concerned about that here. With the Algeria-Morocco variant that we're dealing with, there it's associated with increased spread. There's no indication as to immunity evasion or increased severity, just increased rate of spread. And as a result, it means that we have to pay attention to that to make sure to ascertain that our transmission control and infection control measures are actually going to be effective.
So if I'm to understand what you're saying, Nana, you're telling us that concerning the vaccines and how effective they may be against these 2 new strains, we don't have enough data to know if we need to be worried or not.
Well, specifically to the B1 variant, the one from Algeria and Morocco, there is no reason based on the mutations involved to think that there would be any impact on vaccines. the impact that the higher transmission rate gives you, it affects your herd immunity threshold, because herd immunity is a function of how quickly the virus spreads. So if your average rate of spread goes up, then your herd immunity threshold will go up. But for the B.1.525 variant, even though it does appear that there is some ability to evade existing immunity from the ancestral strains, there's no reason to think that that might necessarily be the case with the vaccines. And even if it were the case with the vaccines, the critical thing that vaccines do, which is preventing death and severe illness, those are things that all the vaccines so far have been able to do against all the variants so far. So we wouldn't expect to see anything different from that either. So as far as vaccination goes, it might impact our herd immunity threshold if we have a general increase in the rate of spread, but we wouldn't expect to see much of an impact necessarily on the effectiveness of vaccines.
Right. I'm sure that will be very reassuring for persons like myself, I must admit, who have been vaccinated already. I also want to know, it looks like B1 was present in Ghana from March 2020. You are not with WACBIP or the Health Ministry, but how did we miss it? How come we are discovering it in March 2021?
Well, I think that's a question of the structure and resourcing of our genomic surveillance efforts. The folks at WACBIP, Imachi Biotech, those guys are doing an extraordinary job sourcing samples and sequencing them to give us results about what exactly we're looking at in terms of variants spreading in Ghana. The challenge that they're having is that they have limited resources. So a lot of the stuff that they're doing out of grant funding rather than out of necessarily direct budgetary allocations or long-term consistent budgetary allocations. So they can only do a couple of samples at a time. They can only do that sampling ever so often. And then they can only do the sequencing of those samples ever so often as well, because they're limited by resource constraints. What we want ideally is a system where maybe on a bi-weekly basis, we're able to get a sense of what the variants that are spreading are. And so that we're also doing that sequencing with larger numbers of samples so that we have more representative data that gives us a sense of exactly how representative the sequencing results are in terms of proportion of different variants, how representative those are of the real population. So those are it's not a question, at least on the science level, of a lack of effort or a lack of attention. Those guys are doing the work, but they don't have sufficient funds to do this at the scale we need to be doing. And that's something that we really have to look at, because as we roll out a vaccine drive, that data about what variants are spreading is how we can configure and estimate the effectiveness, how we can decide things like the herd immunity threshold, and we need clarity on that. So I really hope that there can be more budgetary allocations there, more funding for that effort, and that when there are detections of new variants, that information comes to the public as soon as possible, and not just from the scientists with their limited audience they have from their platform, but from the public health authorities who have a mandate and responsibility to communicate those things.
So, Nana, I pick the sense that we may not have enough funds devoted to particularly determine how widespread these variants are in the first place. But you did mention that one of these variants has the characteristic, of spreading at a faster rate than what we are used to. Is that to say that the population has a lot more of these variants?
Well, I would hate to speculate, because usually I'd want to see specific data from the broader kind of pillar sampling we do in genome sequencing. But on one hand, we know that the B1 variant might spread faster, but we also know that we already have a dominant variant here that spreads much quicker than ancestral strains, and quite similarly to what the Morocco and Algeria strain does, which is the UK variant that we know is dominant in terms of new COVID-19 cases in Ghana. So we know that we're not necessarily going to see such a significant increase in the spread, but we know that that strain will probably be competitive with the UK strain for dominance in the country. It's hard. It's very difficult without having more samples done in more places to have a sense where that's spreading. But the pattern for those variants that have the characteristic of being able to spread faster is that once they enter a population where transmission or infection control measures are not being adhered to, are not proven to be very effective, that they tend to spread very rapidly. And if we're going with the March entry deadline, then we would expect that, or the March entry estimate, or when it was first detected, then we expect maybe 2 weeks before that, 3 weeks before that, it was also spreading. And if you add all that time, it would stand to reason that there will be a meaningful amount of this variant spreading among the population.
Which is exactly what I was thinking, that this variant, pardon my use of a crude expression, has been walking around us for the past year. It must be in a good number of people. So in this conversation, we've established that the vaccines are still safe, are still effective, at least as far as we know. And the number of people who have it is not so clear. What should you say should be the public health response to this discovery by Yamachi and Wakpip?
Well, it's really about going back to basics, or remembering the basics. At the heart of everything COVID-19 is transmission control, it's infection prevention. All the things that we need to be doing to reduce the risk of transmission will be effective for all the variants or for any variant that comes up. So if we are wearing masks in public transit at the rates at which we're supposed to, it will be effective at reducing the spread. If we are trying to limit our attendance and hosting of social gatherings, large weddings, large funerals, which we know are happening, those things will also be effective at reducing the population level risk. But there's also things that our public health agencies have to still be doing. They still have to be doing testing at a much larger level, at much higher rate. We know that basically since the start of February, we've seen a gradual decline in the average daily testing number, through mid-February, a gradual decline in the average testing number, so that right now our 7-day average is about 50% of the February high. That's about 7 tests per 100,000 people per day. And it's not difficult to see how that testing rate will make it very difficult to get a representative idea of infections in our communities, and how they'll also make it difficult to do effective contact tracing, especially because we're seeing that from the public health labs, there seems to be a testing lag there where samples can sometimes take 2 or 3 weeks to get a report out, the average being looks like maybe about a week or so. But if you look at the timing of how this infection transmission chains happen, you only have about 3 days to do effective contact tracing. So if we're not getting results back in that time, it's going to be difficult. So we have to really get back to the effort of making sure that we're expanding testing capacity, bringing to bear antigen testing, as we've been saying we'll do for months now, and also making sure that we are speeding up the rate of contact tracing and the pace of that testing in that respect, so that we can do early isolation, early quarantine, and break the chain. But it goes back down to doing the basic things we're supposed to be doing as individuals and as public health officials around the country, maintaining good hand hygiene, good social distancing, mask wearing, and then being intentional about the contact tracing effort and communicating candidly about what we're finding there.
Now, I'm very curious. You threw out a very scary statistic there that we are testing 7 persons per 100,000 people per day. Are you factoring in the tests that are being done in private facilities, those who need to travel, those who feel sick and will go and pay an amount, maybe those who are taking tests as part of medical procedures? Are all those parts? Because we also know that in cases like that, it's most likely contact tracing does not necessarily happen.
Of course. So we know that a lot of that voluntary testing, when people test positive, they usually contact their own, they report to Ghana Health Service, but what we saw through January and early February was a lot of people who got infected then through private testing contacted their recent people they had come into contact with recently, and those guys then went and got tested kind of on their own in those kind of chains. What I'm talking about is a statistic that includes all that testing. We are made to understand by Ghana Health Service that the data that's on their website that comes from routine surveillance and contact tracing combined represents all the testing we're doing in country, including tests done at private labs. And it's when you take that number and divide it by the population that you get that 7 per 100,000, 7 tests per 100,000 people per day. So we are looking at all those things being included in that figure.
Nana Kofi Kwashe, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. He is a public health expert, adjunct professor at New York University. It's still live on The Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Coming up, we go Rwanda and catch up with Gifty and her gorillas. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Pulse. Now, for 27 years, Rwanda has conserved one of Africa's most endangered species. From its classification as critically endangered, Rwanda's gorillas are now classified as endangered. Have you ever seen gorillas in real life? My colleague, Gifty Andwapia, has, and reports from the Volcano National Park in Rwanda. There are several things you must never do when you see them, including staring back at them when they look at you.
Okay, let me try.
What happened?
You scratch yourself. Be careful.
Okay, so we're told that these are fresh tracks of the gorillas.
Don't try it. It's not like some
this morning.
It pinches you.
Don't touch them. Okay.
Wow.
And on we go. After cutting our breath for a while. We shouldn't touch this plant?
No.
Okay, why?
Oh, you can try it and see. Experience is the best teacher. It's a very hard teacher. You see the exam before the lesson.
Okay. Going through. So I now understand when they said it is a journey of a lifetime. It's not easy. And ouch! 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 No. There's this plant here. This one. This is absolutely deadly. Certainly will have scratches all over my body. And I return.
So we follow them. Here's my phone. I'm already recording. I'm recording. I'm recording. Sama jika monitor. Person is put through. Oh, person is actually be a bunch of clear. Where? Come on, make sure you pass through and come up here.
About 4 hours of walking through sinking mud, excruciatingly painful piercing plant, and rains that soaked us wet. That's what is taken for us to see one of the world's most endangered species, a family of gorillas, here at the Volcano National Park in Rwanda. If you ever wondered what the military term guerrilla warfare or guerrilla tactics meant, you should experience this park. Your visit here will not only challenge you, but you will be contributing to the conservation of this beautiful African piece of nature and to the livelihood and feed thousands of people who live across this community and who owns 10% of the proceeds they make here. Gifty Andwapia, JoyNews, Musanze, Rwanda.
Still live on The Pulse. Let's go back to Rwanda, and Gifty Andwapia is joining us via Zoom. Hi, Gifty. How is Rwanda this afternoon?
Hi, Daniel. Rwanda is fine. It's sunny here in Kigali. We arrived in Kigali, I think, yesterday from Musanze, which is very cold. But we're here in Kigali and it feels like Ghana. It's good.
Nice. So run us through what your itinerary has been like in the past few days.
All right, Daniel, we arrived here on Sunday. I told you this on Joy Prime earlier. And then we started our program on Monday. On Monday, we had a series of meetings with the head of consulate, development board, and other officials here. And then the next day, we went into the mountains to see, gorillas. It's not just about seeing gorillas, by the way, I must say. The point is that this is a beautiful piece of nature that the people here are trying to conserve, as well as the species that are endangered all over the world. And the point is that the profits or the proceeds that they make from there goes into, making the livelihoods of the people who live in the community better. So that's what we did yesterday. Today, we went to the memorial, the genocide memorial. It's been a very emotional and thrilling experience for me, Daniel, and I can speak for everybody else on the team on this one. When we were taken through how they believe that the genocide was started and the fact that it wasn't just an event, the fact that it was something that crept into the society slowly, silently, fueled by the media, fueled by politicians, until it until when it finally blew up, and then we had the number of people who were killed. That's by the way of the itinerary. But if you want us to focus a bit more on the genocide, Daniel, we could.
Yes, I'm very curious to hear about how Rwanda has healed after that gruesome historical event.
Okay, Daniel, I'm struggling to hear you because we're moving. I'm in a vehicle, if you can see. I'm struggling to hear you, but I believe you're asking a bit more about the genocide.
Yes, I am.
What they're doing is that, yes, this happened in April. The genocide happened in April 1994. Now, what the Rwandan authorities tell us is that every April in every year, they commemorate it starting with a week of mourning. So there's going to be a week of mourning, and the whole idea is that it's just been, this year will be the 27th year since the genocide. The whole idea is that it's still fresh in people's minds. People have still lost people, and it's not that easy to move forward from. So they do some of these things to remind the people of how far they have come and where they have come from. So with this commemoration, they're looking to start it with a week of mourning, but I think that there are also a series of events which they haven't necessarily taken us through, but they make us understand that there are key things that they do in order to, create this consciousness of never again. And those are the things that they'll be doing with the commemoration of the genocide next month, Daniel.
Gifty, thank you so much for joining us with those updates. Have fun out there and please be safe. We will reconnect with Gifty shortly in the bulletin, but in the meantime, the Banu East Regional Police Command has commenced investigations into the murder of a top Muslim cleric with the Tijaniya sect who was shot and killed by suspected armed robbers at about 7 p.m. Tuesday on the Abromasi Road near Yeji in the Pru East District. Correspondent Anas Sabit has been speaking with the Regional Police Commander, DCOP Esumadu Ochredako, and has filed the following report.
Banu East Regional Police Commander DCOP Esumadu Ochredako narrates to JoyNews how the late Muslim cleric Kalamul Faida Sheikh Ali Abdullahi Mekano was shot and killed by suspected armed robbers on the Abromasi Road.
We had a report from Yeji police that last night about 8:30, one man called Abdul Mumuni, he came to the station there with a report that at about 7 p.m. he was traveling with the victim on a motorbike from a village called Kajevu towards Yeji. And they got to a section of the road where they saw that some people had emerged from the bush and then fired at them. According to Momoni, he actually was able to escape, leaving behind the victims. So he rushed to the station. Police accompanied him to the point where he claimed they had been shot at, and they found the victim who had sustained a gunshot on the right leg, and he was actually dead. So they took him and brought him to the EIG government hospital for preservation.
The Regional Police Command has, however, commenced investigations into the matter and assures the family and the public that the perpetrators will be brought to book.
We have started investigation. We have been, after we brought the body to the morgue at the EIG hospital, the police went back to the scene looking for pieces of evidence. And we have started talking to informants for possible clue or clues that can help us arrest the suspects.
DCOP Ochredakun called on the bereaved family and the general public to remain calm as the police increases surveillance on the major road networks within the region.
We want to tell the general public, including the family, that we are doing our best. We are working around the clock to get the perpetrators arrested. We have also increased patrols on that road, and we have put on these roads more snap checkpoints. Yes, we are also doing escort of some vehicles. So the measures are in place, and we are hoping that we achieve our goal of reducing robbery incidents to the barest minimum in the region.
Reporting for JoyNews, Anas Sabit, Tichiman.
Now it's the third day of debate in Parliament on the 2021 budget. We take you now to the floor of the House for a live coverage of proceedings.
And then we can move to the main topic of the day, the continuation of the debate. The others, we want the ministers responsible for the sectors to be available before those statements are made. Some are quite urgent, but we need the reaction of the sector ministers, and also for them, after the statements are made, to take immediate action to resolve the issues. And so I'm going to permit the Honourable Member for West Central to make a statement on the devastating impact of Galamsey and irresponsible mining practices on Ghanaians by Honourable Dr. Rashid Pelpu. This is because of the impact on the water sector in the country and the threats to the water system. Yes, Honourable Member, you may do so now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this unique opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I stand today on behalf of the many Ghanaians who have been afflicted by the unparalleled devastation we are witnessing across many communities in Ghana, especially the Western region and many other regions of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, our dear country Ghana is blessed with enviable natural resources, a beautiful shoreline and ecosystem of serene rivers, marshlands, and green vegetation on which our people of myriads of flora and fauna depend. Rivers like Pra, Amanzule, Subin, Ankobra, Tano, Offin, Brim, Blackwater, and large lagoons and water bodies like the Abe Legon are sources of sustenance and refreshment for entire communities in the southwestern and central banks of our country. Our people fish from along these rivers. Economic activities thrive along them, while our children and adults enjoy their refreshing waters. Underneath our lands and our shores are even more valuable minerals like gold, diamond, bauxite, manganese, and others, as well as millions of others, barrels of oil, of cubic feet of gas, and other resources. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the people who live in the areas where these valuable minerals are found are of the poorest of the country. While their resources fuel Ghana's economy, they themselves have had to contend with subsistent living, lack of acceptable health care facilities, and personnel, dilapidated and non-existent education facilities, among others. One would have thought that for an opportunity to mine gold and other minerals in these areas would have opened up these areas and lead tangible improvement in the standard of living of the indigenous population of these communities. Ironically, Mr. Speaker, in the past 10 years, irresponsible mining practices made possible by lackluster supervision and regulatory regimes compiled with illegal mining or galamsey have left unspeakable devastation in these communities. Mr. Speaker, the level of destruction has taken on a new life of its own in the past 5 years. Today, Nkrafol, the birthplace of our pride and President of Ghana, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, has been left with gullies and unspeakable devastation that pose major risks to the inhabitants. The situation is even worse in some areas where these destructive and highly polluting activities are carried out right in the middle of towns and villages in the full glare of security and administrative personnel. Large tracts of virgin lands and in Suta, in the western region, Prestia and western region, in the western region, Obuasi, Adansi, and several other places in the Upper West region as well, have been destroyed. Mr. Speaker, many rivers we have mentioned here have been polluted beyond recognition. The atmosphere is saturated with mercury, contamination, cyanide, and other chemicals. Instead of refreshing the rivers, there are gullies and pools of mercury and silt contaminated water. Children and adults alike have drowned in gullies left uncovered by these irresponsible activities. Mr. Speaker, it is on record that the President is addressing the galamsey. In addressing the galamsey in 2017, made a statement that, and I quote, "I am willing to put my presidency on the line." Today, Mr. Speaker, galamsey and various versions of this have become a normal practice. The attempt at tackling these menace only lead to cronies of the government in power and other individuals, and particularly connected Ghanaians and foreign nationals, being given licenses with no follow-up to determine what they do. Mr. Speaker, security forces have enforced the law only half-heartedly. Mr. Speaker, the lack of will to act at the top has led to suspicion about the security of authorities in taking the right actions to end these irresponsible and illegal activities. At this rate, Mr. Speaker, unless something drastic is done to curb this menace, many in our nation, and these are the most vulnerable of our population, would need to import water for the survival and continuing debilitating diseases that can result from prolonged mercury poisoning. Mr. Speaker, the opportunity of doing nothing about this current mayhem unleashed by irresponsible mining practices and galamsey is enormous. Our country stands at the crossroad today. We in Parliament have the onerous responsibility to speak up and require the government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the Minerals Commission, the Ministry of Lands and Forestry, the Ghana National House of Chiefs, and the Regional House of Chiefs, and especially those in the hotspots in the act to curb this menace once and for all. Mr. Speaker, a government environmental activist, Mrs. Elizabeth Va, who I found on Facebook and other social media, has put out some very important areas of commissioning for our understanding. And Mr. Speaker, about 3,500 signatories in Ghana and abroad, all are found citing and signing these her resolution which he put across. And Mr. Speaker, may I just quote a few of them? And number one being that we are called on to halt the matter of agency as a matter of agency, the imposition of executors, and to ensure that the matter is brought to an end. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the government of Ghana to halt all licensing for the prospecting of gold, bauxite, and any other minerals in the forest. The Speaker, he also said that we need to have all mining activities in our near bodies of water and forest reserves halted with immediate effect. And we also need to have all current mining licenses holders present their land reclamation plans to an independently created body made up of professionals in land reclamation and mining. Mr. Speaker, having read all these, I have took notice that the President, in mentioning the minister to take over from the past minister, he particularly mentioned a young person, Honorable Samuel Jinapo, to take over as the Minister for Lands and Forestry. We look forward to seeing a more determined foresight in saving our dear country. This will address the earlier lackluster approach in dealing with the issue. Mr. Speaker, I have another page which I have left out just because it looks like there's a lot of time we need to. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Deputy Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, you admitted my senior colleague's statement under the rules of this House. And the terms of the statement, as you admitted, is supposed to be fully made available to the House. So I would suggest, most humbly, that if he holds a view that for want of time, he wouldn't want to read everything, then he must apply to the chair for answer to capture the entire statement. Other than that, I think, Mr. Speaker, there will be a difficulty. Mr. Speaker, without boring you, Order 72 is clear on what it is. I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker.
Well, honorable members, I will just direct that he submits a copy of the statement to be fully captured by the Hansard office. Yes, Honorable Kofi Ahmad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me first of all thank the maker of the statement, Honorable Pepo, for this very important statement on a very important topic, Galamsey. Mr. Speaker, the devastation that this menace is causing in our country, especially in the communities that he mentioned, cannot be overemphasized. The pollution to our water bodies, our rivers, the pollution to even the air we breathe, the daily stories of young men dying in pits, the devastation that this is causing. Mr. Speaker, are clearly what has been recounted. Now, Mr. Speaker, on this day, and because I'm speaking in Parliament, I want to talk about even the issuance of mining licenses to the so-called very legitimate mining companies and what they are actually doing to encourage galamsey. Mr. Speaker, a lot of these galamsey activities have been occurring in our community, especially in my community. And I started to investigate why the constant interest. And I found out that the big mining companies who have concessions occasionally will not be getting the kind of mines that they had projected they will get in the area. So they are getting what they call tailings from the illegal galamseyers. And that is actually what is keeping their business going, encouraging illegal mining. And Mr. Speaker, even as we describe and talk about this effect, I think I'm calling on government, especially the Minerals Commission, to ban this tailing that these mining companies are getting. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I think it's also very important that just last week there was a shooting, a rancor between a community in the Valua Jomrojura and a mining company at Damus. And Mr. Speaker, if you go into the story, it had to do with a community with a lot of young people who no jobs, and the feeling that the mining company has not even been engaging them. It is important that mining communities basically engage properly the communities and have a long-term plan with these communities. You cannot work in a community and mine and take the only resources they have. You can get your licenses from the government in Accra, but the real people with the social licenses are the communities. And often when these mining companies go to these communities, the communities are ignored. They can't mine, they don't have any authority, and yet they feel completely helpless. It is important that if we are to address illegal mining, these issues must also be addressed. But Mr. Speaker, more importantly, we must have a plan. And I think I'm very happy that the maker of the statement talked about political will. I mean, the history of our fight with galamsey is a very extended one. I'm sure that every government has tried it. But we have to ask the question, why do we always fail? Mr. Speaker, we fail because at the core of this business, illegal galamsey, is survival. And we must really find the solution. And Mr. Speaker, the solution lies in making sure that we do the things that will empower the youth. We do the things that will empower our young people. I think the call that we immediately get the Minerals Commission and other government institutions to begin a bold decision to ban the issuance of licenses close to water bodies should be a starting point. But Mr. Speaker, more importantly, the lessons in the last 2 years must tell us something. We cannot
make a bold decision that we want to fight Galamsey, and somehow think that we can make exceptions. We can make exceptions to our cronies, we can make exceptions to our party friends, and somehow we can succeed. It was obvious that the reason why we got where we were was because people just got out of control. This is clearly a lesson that we should learn if we are to succeed again in this fight against Galamsey. It is a fight we must win. It is a fight we must win together. It is a fight that is at the heart of Ghana's own survival. Check our water bodies around. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a very important statement. We must fight Galamsey, but we must fight it together. We must fight it with one objective, to protect our water bodies and create alternatives for our young people. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Yes, Honorable. I don't intend to call too many people, but yes, it's your turn.
Grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm adding my voice to a statement ably made by my senior colleague on small-scale mining. Mr. Speaker, the Galamsey, as we popularly caption, is gather them and sell. Mr. Speaker, locally, the white people came to our area, and because we were collecting the gold nuggets with brooms at all times, they normally termed it as gather them and sell. And my grandma couldn't pronounce it well and said Galamsey. So Galamsey is gather them and sell. Mr. Speaker, in our jurisdiction, small-scale mining or mining is termed as Galamsey, whether it is legal or illegal. And when we're tackling such a menace,
You're live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Daz. The news just coming in is that 8 people have died, with at least 20 in critical condition in a car accident outside of Sola. Our correspondent in the Savannah region, Isaac Nonya, has joined us with some details of the accident. Isaac, help us understand what happened.
So some few hours ago, a Wabang vehicle from Wa heading towards Kumasi, but upon reaching Sola in the Sola Tinakaba district, Savannah region, we're told the source from the Sola Police Command revealed that the second vehicle, a Samsung minibus, overtook the Sprinter bus. And few meters, 100 meters away from the Sprinter bus, the chop box of the Samsung vehicle fell off. And the bus that was behind the Samsung vehicle didn't know and then ran into the chop box and then had a flat tire, which forced the vehicle off the road into the bush. Right there in the bush, 6 people died on the spot, and 22 others who were injured were conveyed to the Sola District Hospital. Few minutes later, after those who were conveyed to the hospital, 2 also died, bringing the death toll to 8. The only corpse identified among the 8 is the driver mate, a 28-year Bashiru Muhammad. But the driver is still alive, and he was able to identify his driver mate.
Now, tell us about this Sanyong vehicle, which did not properly secure the chop box on top and had it fall off. Are they currently aiding police with investigations?
Yes, as we speak, the case has been moved from the Sola district to the regional command, and we are told they have arrested.
Right, Isaac Nonya, they're explaining that this road accident took place between a Sprinter bus heading to Kumasi from Wa and a Sanyong vehicle. Now, this Sanyong vehicle overtook the Sprinter bus, but a chop box fell off the Sanyong vehicle, and the Sprinter bus driver did not see this chop box. He ran into it and then he careened into the bushes, where 6 people died on the spot. 22 injured persons were sent to the Sola District Hospital. Unfortunately, 2 more people have lost their lives. A 28-year-old driver's mate has been identified as one of the persons who have died. That's the latest as we have it. 8 people have passed away in a road accident in the outskirts of Sola. We'll get more details and word from the police later bulletins. Now, we take you back to Parliament. Now, that debate will begin shortly, but currently, members are deliberating on a statement which was read by the MP for Wa Central, Rashid Pelpo, on the scourge of illegal mining in the country. Earlier, we heard the Honourable Amako Fibwa, Member of Parliament for Elembele. Now on the floor speaking is the Honourable George Merikuduka, Member of Parliament for Takwanswayem.
That at this point in time, we all putting our hands on the same page to address illegal mining. But let us be careful that we'll sing from the same hymn page, not discussing something important here and going on air to say a different thing, that you go and mine illegally. If it is illegal here, it must be illegal everywhere, not saying something here and touting on air differently. On this note, Mr. Speaker, I once again commend the maker of the statement, and let's tackle this menace collectively and dispassionately. I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, we still have the motion to debate, and today we are programmed to take 15 from each side of the House. So 30 of you have agreed to contribute to the debate today. And so we are likely to go beyond 10 p.m. unless you want to curtail some of your submissions. I don't want to restrict the free flow of our deliberations in the House. That's why sometimes I'm very generous. And so please, if you can limit your comments, I'll admit a few more. And I'll start with Honorable Suhini. I'll come back to the Minister to say a word, then we can move on. Yes, Honorable Suhini.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement ably made by a ranking member for Lands and Forestry. I wish to commend him for such a thorough and well-researched paper that has been presented. Mr. Speaker, I've lost count of the number of times I've listened to statements being made on this floor on the need for all of us to come together to fight galamsey. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the President, in many of his State of the Nation address, have also, on countless occasions, made statements on the need for us to fight this menace. Even presidents before him made commitments to the effect that there's a need for all of us to come together to fight this menace. Mr. Speaker, however, what remains is the fact that out there we seem clearly to have been losing the fight every time we renew our commitment and our pledge to fight the menace. And the consequences are that our water bodies remain polluted, our forest cover is depleted, and our citizens continue to put their lives at risk as they engage in this practice. Our farmlands are also affected by the practice. So perhaps, Mr. Speaker, it is about time that we came together to look at what we have been doing over the period, which have not been giving us the desired results, because it is common knowledge that if you do the same things expecting different results, then you can be perhaps likened to a man who is not very well upstairs. So it is perhaps time for us to come together to look at what we have been doing. Perhaps the brute force of closing down mines, of destroying equipment, burning them, arresting and imprisoning people, have not given us the results that we have all desired. We have spoken often about the need to introduce, for example, alternative livelihood programs. How well have those programs that we have introduced in some of these communities served us? We should be looking at reviewing those alternative livelihood programs and assessing the impact of those programs to see if they are, a better option for us to use in dealing with this. Again, we also know about the processes that are required for people to take advantage of this natural resource that belongs to the people and in their communities. Because people definitely, naturally, will want to extract this natural resource that is found within their communities and is supposed to be used for their good. But if you have cumbersome processes, for example, you have the Mineral Commission that is supposed to regulate the activities of these miners, centered in big cities, sometimes only in Greater Accra, and yet you have a mining field in Bolga. You have a resource that the people in the Western region want to exploit, and for them to be able to get the permit to do that, they'll have to travel long distances, sometimes make many trips to some of these offices so that they can get the approvals to extract these minerals. These are disincentives, Mr. Speaker, for people to even follow the law and do the mining, using appropriate technology and appropriate processes. So it is perhaps also good for us to look at how we can decentralize the Minerals Commission and the offices that are supposed to regulate, the activities of these small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, I am disappointed, however, that after a relentless war that we were told was being waged on these miners, our president, after 4 years, came around to humbly, request that we begin another national conversation on this. Clearly, it tells you, Mr. Speaker, that we had spent so much money at what we thought was a war worth winning, only for us to get very little results from it. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, what was missing in the war was the government's own promise before the 2016 general elections to improve our water bodies by implementing a program that was to be known as the Clean Rivers Program. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that by 2020, the only message on this Clean Rivers Program that you will find in the 2020 manifesto of the New Patriotic Party is the assertion that a total of 9 million trees were planted along riversides. I mean, how was that supposed to ensure that we improve the water quality of our lakes and rivers in this country? So, Mr. Speaker, I agree with the call for all of us to have a rethink and review some of the things that we have been doing that have been giving us the results that we are all not too excited about, and perhaps design a better approach moving forward. And I wish the new minister well. I hope that he will be accommodating enough and will be all-embracing. He will operate an open-door policy that will invite opinions and suggestions that together we can all succeed in ensuring that our people benefit from this natural resource, but not to the detriment of our environment and our livelihood. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Honorable Minister for Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement made by the Honorable Rashid Pelpo, Member of Parliament for Wa Central, and who happens to be the ranking member for my ministry. The Speaker, the ministry is changed from lands and forestry to lands and natural resources, just for the records. Mr. Speaker, when I appeared before the Appointments Committee,
I made the point that for us to be able to deal with the issue of illegal small-scale mining, galamsey, in our country, I will respectfully submit, Mr. Speaker, that we need honesty. We need to be very honest. We need to be very sincere. And I ask for the support of this House, and I continue to ask for the support of this House, which is that for us to be able to make any meaningful impact in dealing with illegal small-scale mining in our country, we will need honesty and sincerity. Mr. Speaker, the fact is that anywhere you have an extractive industry in the world, whether it's in Canada or Australia or South Africa or Kenya or the California gold rush, which we are all very familiar with, you have problems with illegality. That is the situation. Mr. Speaker, I want to also say that when the President called for a national dialogue, he was sincere, and we require a national dialogue. Mr. Speaker, the reason why we require a national dialogue is that if you take a look at the manifesto of the New Patriotic Party for both election 2016 and 2020, and you take the manifesto of the National Democratic Congress for both election 2016 and 2020, the commitments in respect of illegal small-scale mining are almost the same. They are the same. Looked at it, Mr. Speaker. The two parties all commit to a lawful, viable, environmentally prudent small-scale mining. And both parties frown upon illegal small-scale mining. So that honesty is required, and I want to proceed that I don't take the position that everything that happened in the past was bad and was a failure and that was wrong, and that everything that happened in the past was good. Mr. Speaker, lots of good interventions took place in the first 4 years of President Akufo-Addo in respect of illegal small-scale mining. This was arguably the first time in our history, Mr. Speaker, that the issue of illegal small-scale mining was put very much at the front burner, where a lot of interventions were made. Interventions such as training small-scale miners, interventions such as community mining introduction. Mr. Speaker, I have in my hand here a gamut of legislative interventions, laws which were put in place to deal with equipment, to deal with the issues of how to acquire license, to deal with how to use revenue which comes from mining, and all of it. So a lot of things happened. Mr. Speaker, is the infrastructural component of the fight. But we must also admit, and I'm the first as the minister to admit, that there are lessons to be learned out of that. Which is why, Mr. Speaker, since taking office in 14 days today, I have set up a committee chaired by the able member of parliament from Wabieda, Honorable Benito, to coordinate this national dialogue, which will have all of us around the table, MPP, NDC, National House of Chiefs, pundits, civil society organizations, media around the table to discuss this matter. Mr. Speaker, the impression sometimes is created that illegal small-scale mining just happened overnight. That is not correct, Mr. Speaker. It is not correct that illegal small-scale mining just happened. Mr. Speaker, I have in my hand here the proceedings of the Appointments Committee, dated Friday, 25th January 2013, where, very characteristic of my friend, the Honorable Okujoto Ablakwa, tabled, quite rightly, the issue of illegal small-scale mining, when my senior brother, the Honorable Alhaji Idris Husseini, appeared before the Appointments Committee to be vetted for the position of Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. And Mr. Speaker, it's instructive and revealing. With your indulgence, I just want to read portions of it, and I quote, the Honorable Okujoto Ablakwa, in posing a question, stated as follows. My second question, Mr. Chairman, has to do with mining, small-scale mining. In recent times, there have been serious concerns about the way and manner small-scale mining is destroying our environment. Indeed, our water bodies are now polluted because of small-scale mining, especially illegal small-scale mining, popularly known as galamsey. While you are answering that too, I would like to know how you intend to carry out the NDC manifesto pledge to flush out foreign galamsey operators. Now you have to grapple with not only the illegal small-scale miners from Ghana, but illegal small-scale miners from many other countries. The NDC manifesto, and it goes on and on and on. Mr. Speaker, the point out of this, and indeed, Mr. Speaker, again,
I have here in my hand a graphic report dated 1st June 2017, where graphic reports as follows. 1st June 2017, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence. The national campaign against illegal small-scale mining, Galamsey, is yielding some positive results as the quality and levels of water bodies in our country have improved. This has enabled the Ghana Water Company Limited to resume the operation of some of its treatment plants that were shut down due to the impact of Galamsey, end quote. Mr. Speaker, 6 months into the administration of President Akufo-Addo, 6 months into the administration of President Akufo-Addo, because the fact was that Ghana Water Company plants had been shut down because of the adverse consequences of illegal small-scale mining. Mr. Speaker, that said, I want to conclude by craving the indulgence of members of this House, because we have 275 members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, so if I was lucky to even receive the support of 80% of the members of this House, I have no doubt that we can deal with illegal small-scale mining in this country. Because in every community where you have illegal small-scale mining, you have a member of Parliament. In every community where you have illegal small-scale mining, you have an influential member of this House. And I intend to count on the wisdom, the experiences, and the support of members of this House. And together, if we stand by the vision of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we can deal with illegal small-scale mining in our country for the betterment of the future of our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, we'll move on. Statement time is ended, and we start at the commencement of public business. Item 5 on the order paper. Honorable members, we shall continue with the debate to approve the financial policy of the government of Ghana for the year ending 31st December 2021. You recall it was moved on Friday, 12 March 2021, and seconded on the 16th of March, which is Tuesday, 2021. So we'll continue with the debate. Yesterday, we ended with the contribution of an honorable member from the left side of the House. And therefore, we'll start today with an honorable member from the right, I mean my right side. And the list I have from that side has given the first position to the Honorable Samuel Atachia to set the ball rolling for today. Honorable member, you may submit your contributions.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the brief space to make a modest contribution to motion number 5 on today's order paper. To the effect
Sorry,
that
Honorable member, are you ranking member or?
I'm the chairman.
You are chairman?
Yes.
You are chairman of which committee?
Mines and Energy.
Good. All right, so you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The motion to the effect that this Honorable House approves the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2021. Honorable Speaker, if I may quote a prominent development thinker, Jeff Sessions, and this is what he said: we cannot do everything with the budget, but we can put the country on a much sounder financial footing, unquote. Mr. Speaker, this is what the budget themed economic revitalization through completion, consolidation, and continuity. 1 year here, 1 year here, we are moving forward. It's all about. We are being placed on a much sounder financial footing. Mr. Speaker, I've heard some June arguments that the COVID pandemic did not have any level of debilitating effect on the economy of this country. A lot of my colleagues on the other side have been making this argument. I beg to differ. We don't have to live in denial when it comes to the economy, Mr. Speaker. The economy does not wear party colors. And I want to quote what the minister responsible for finance said concerning the effect of the COVID on the economy. That is at paragraph 7, page 1, and then I will end at paragraph 8 at page 2. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, I would like to quote. Mr. Speaker, the year 2020 was a difficult period for Ghana and the rest of the world. Never before in recent history has a pandemic triggered such dramatic changes to lives and livelihoods simultaneously. The last such pandemic of global impact was the Spanish flu in 1918, over 100 years ago. The ensuing crisis has disrupted supply chains and exerted undue pressure on economic and financial systems, killed businesses and jobs. Developing and emerging economies, including Ghana, has had to deal with external headwinds, falling commodity prices, and rising expenditures to address the effects of the pandemic, unquote. Right, Honourable Speaker, let me bring to your attention that it is not only the financial minister who is seeing this situation, the World Bank itself. And I've assembled a couple of observations from the World Bank, and I'm quoting the Global Economic Prospects of the World Bank, the January 2021 report. With your permission, I'd like to just quote the beginning point. COVID-19, and I want those who are the naysayers to listen. The World Bank is speaking. Caused a global recession whose depth was surpassed only by the 2 world wars and the Great Depression over the past century and a half. Although global economic activity is growing again, it is not likely to return to business as usual for the foreseeable future. The pandemic has caused a severe loss of life. It's tipping millions into extreme poverty and is expected to inflict lasting scars that push activity and income well below their pre-pandemic trend for a prolonged period, unquote. I said January 2021, and I want you to listen, please. And now let me quote what is said of sub-Saharan Africa, and it also concerns the World Bank report of January 2021. Sub-Saharan Africa, Ghana included, of course, has been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, with activity in the region shrinking by an estimated 3.7% last year. Growth is forecast to resume at a moderate average pace of 3% in 2021 and 2022, essentially zero in per capita terms and well below previous projections, as persistent outbreaks in several countries continue to inhibit the recovery. COVID-19 is likely to weigh on growth in sub-Saharan Africa for a long time. And as the rollout of vaccines in the region is expected to lag that of advanced countries and major EMDEs, further dampening growth. As a result, living standards are likely to be set back a decade, and 10 million of people in the region could be placed into extreme poverty. Cumulatively, in 2020 and 2021, risks to the region outlook are tilted to the downside and include weaker than expected recoveries in key trading partner economies, logistical hurdles that further impede vaccine distribution, and scarring of labor productivity that weakens potential growth and income over the longer period, unquote. The World Bank says that in the year 2018, Ghana recorded real GDP growth at market prices in percent 6.3, 2018, 2019, 6.5, and the year of our problems, 2020, 1.1. These are raw figures that do not wear party colors. And let's run away from the situation in which we are trying to live in denial, so we tackle the problem together. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit that the debt pillage that everybody is talking about is equally the handiwork of the Mahama government, the debt pillage. And let me refer to the 2020 financial year and the budget that was read to us by Mr. Ken Oforiatta. I'm referring to page 2, the paragraph number 12. Mr. Speaker, if you add the cost of cleaning the financial sector challenges to the long list of legacy bills that the Akufo-Addo government had to settle, the cost to the Ghanaian taxpayer is around 33 billion Ghana cedis. This assertion remains unchallenged. It is deemed admitted. Honorable Speaker, the unnecessary cost of doing so to the economy in 2014 alone was in the gargantuan sum of 680 million United States dollars, which is 2% of GDP. These are incontrovertible, facts, and they add to the debt pillage. The nation is hemorrhaging by reason of excess capacity charge of 70 million annually. Excess capacity charge in the sum of 70 million annually. The take or pay at the behest of the Mahama government, rather than the more sensible arrangement of take and pay, tantamounts to causing financial loss to the state. I want to repeat that. The take or pay at the behest of the Mahama government, rather than the more sensible arrangement of take and pay, tantamounts to causing financial loss to the state. Mr. Speaker, I want to refer to the Supreme Court case of Chachuchi Kata versus the Republic. And I'm reading the ingredients of causing financial loss to the state. It may be found at page 1069. It is also provided by Section 179A3A of the Criminal Code 1960, Act 29, as amended by the Criminal Code Amendment Act 1993, Act 458, that any person through whose willful, 1, malicious, 2, fraudulent action, and what is even more serious, or omission, the state incurs a financial loss, commits an offense. We shouldn't run away from these things. There are serious offenses that have been committed because of the take or pay. Honorable Speaker, perusing the sectorial development and the sectorial development outlook, I paid serious attention to the Office of Government Machinery. Because, Honorable Speaker, I heard arguments that the budget of the Office of Government Machinery is expanding. I said, of course, it should expand, because it's the most serious department of governance we have. What is even more serious is that I counted close to 14 programs being driven by the President under the Office of Government Machinery. So what do you expect? The enhanced benefit of local awards by the Scholarship Secretariat, the Nation Builders Corps, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, GIPC, that raked in United States dollars 627.52 million of foreign direct investment, MASLOC, the new National Equipment Leasing Policy, the continuing Zongo Development Fund Program, sanitation and water for all, inclusive. Honorable Speaker, this is consistent with fulfilling Sustainable Development Goals numbered 15. 50 prefabricated warehouses for grains. The continuing One Village, One Dam. Number 10, provisions of markets. Number 11, 10,000 hospital beds for the 275 constituencies. Number 12, the National Property Address Tagging Project. Number 13, constituency-specific projects, the supply of outboard motors. And therefore, it is an invented logic to say that while the president is driving the economy through his office, his budget should shrink. The better the programs and the more we apply the monies, the better the nation moves forward. In keeping with Sustainable Development Goal number 16 on peace, justice, strong institutions, the justice delivery is undergoing a paradigm shift. The Alternative Dispute Resolution, ADR program, is being upscaled to reduce the murky backlog of civil cases. The progress of having an e-justice system should be our categorical imperative as we free us from the fetters of antiquated typewriter system of justice. The president wants us to change our eyeglasses, Right Honorable Speaker, to see fresh vistas of economic revitalization through completion, consolidation, and continuing the good programs that he has started. One here. The doubting Thomases should join us. And let me conclude by quoting Dr. David Anker. I want to conclude by that. Where's my conclusion? Hey, how are you? Right Honorable Speaker, let me quote Dr. David Anker. The party's policy is to liberate the energies of the people for the growth of a property-owning democracy in this land, with right to life, freedom, and justice as the principles to which the government and laws of the land should be dedicated, in order to specifically to enrich life, property, and liberty of each and every citizen, unquote. President Akufo-Addo is driving the destination of this nation to this point. I thank you for your kind indulgence.
You only added 21 seconds to your 15 minutes. It's now the turn of the Honorable Member Dr. Kwabena Donko. You are a ranking member, so you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the motion. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by wondering why, for the first time in recent years, as a nation, we were unable to agree on a minimum wage for the hard-working people of Ghana
before the beginning of this financial year. Mr. Speaker, it's been the practice that for the budget to be meaningful, agreement should be reached by the tripartite committee on the minimum wage for the wage to become an input into the budget. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to believe that this time-honored tradition was breached because people were in a hurry. That people were in a hurry. Neither was this breached because we did not recognize the importance of human capital. Mr. Speaker, what then informed the personal emoluments component of the budget? Is it guesswork with the opportunity to come back in the media to review our guesswork? Mr. Speaker, as a people, we can be far more serious than this. If we are underestimating the importance of human capital, considering that personal emoluments per paragraph 269 constitutes 26.6% of total expenditure, then, Mr. Speaker, we are doing at best a half-hearted job and at worst a very shoddy job at that. Mr. Speaker, in paragraphs 149 and 258, the issue of excess capacity, the perennial excuse of excess capacity, is brought again into full play. Mr. Speaker, excess capacity has been used as some justification for the debt overhang that we have. But, Mr. Speaker, let's separate facts from propaganda. Let's separate the wheat from the chaff. In 2019, out of the amount allegedly paid to